specific language that we use in our business, the intent to treat cohort, the per protocol cohort, these are separate analyses. They describe these differences and how, because it's known that you can manipulate the data in these different ways. And it's clear now, and basically this was the subject, by the way, just to bring it back around to our first topic. This is the subject of that presentation that the Canadians put out, that I put in that Twitter post, was all the different ways that the Pfizer data was manipulated.
The fact that that is grounds for being removed from Twitter is so astonishing. It's just, it blows my mind that that's the number one platform for distributing information right now, and that things like that are happening there. Because it is. I mean, it's essentially the number one, that and Facebook. I don't know which one's bigger, but for distributing information.
So, what's recently taken place? So remember, looping back, I talked about the interconnectedness at the board level between Pfizer and Thomson Reuters.
Yes.
Okay. Thomson Reuters has become the fact checker of choice for determining, I quotes fact checker, right? And we know so we can go into the Facebook lawsuit that recently broke that whole story open. But Thomson Reuters is tied to Pfizer. They have common corporate ownership, and they are the fact checker of Twitter. Now, they're integrated. Okay, so it's Thomson Reuters is making the decision, which has connections to Pfizer, about what information will be allowed to be discussed on Twitter.
That is crazy. It's so crazy to even hear. And I don't know how we ever pull out of this mess. I mean, I think we are at a 45-degree downward angle headed into a mountain. I really do. It's so strange to me that no one's up in arms about this, other than a few people that have been censored, a few people that have these opposing viewpoints that are deemed to be something that can't be discussed.
Well, it's Joe. It's even deeper than that. Okay. Then there's the hunting of physicians. So I myself, Peter McCullough is the textbook example of hunting physicians, right? The guy is 150,000 in debt right now, in the hole, in trying to defend his medical license. This is one of the most highly published authors in the world. He's an exceptional researcher, and apparently a pretty good podcaster too.
Based on, I mean, the guy's published more in his field than any other physician in history.
And Baylor's trying to take him out. And it's not only Baylor, it's some entity outside of Baylor that's come in and is financing the attacks on him. But just to bring it home, really not to make it all about me, but to be able to speak in the first person, okay? So I went to Maui with a bunch of physicians a few months ago, and we gave talks and did training about early treatments. We didn't talk about vaccines. There's only one hospital on Maui, on the island of Maui. It's owned by it's basically a Kaiser Permanente satellite, okay? So we went there, we gave that talk. That hospital and the hospitalists associated with it are actively involved and have kicked out Kirk Milhouse because he's giving early treatment with the horse drug, ivermectin. Okay? Now, who's Kirk Milhouse? Why is he in this hospital? What is he qualified? Okay? He's an MD, PhD, pediatric cardiologist with his PhD training at UC San Diego in vascular inflammation. He is among the most qualified individuals in the world for managing COVID and culminating on myocarditis in children. And they've kicked him out of the hospital.
Just for prescribing ivermectin.
For early treatment. Okay? He also happens to be a pastor at a local congregation. He runs a food bank. His whole life he has traveled to emerging economies to provide free treatment. This is the kind of exemplar person that we all should be. in the best of all possible worlds.
And did they give an excuse for this? Are they saying that his prescription of early treatment promotes vaccine hesitancy? Like, is there anything?
He's prescribing ineffective drugs and putting people's lives at risk. But here's the point. I'm not even there yet. Okay, we're just winding up on this one.
Right.
So the other day, right before Christmas, 3 days before Christmas, I get a package from my licensing agency, which I'm licensed through the state of Maryland. So the state of Maryland Medical Board sends me a package, and it is a complaint that's been filed against me. I have 6 days to respond. Basically, I end up having to respond on Christmas Day, okay, or earlier, to this attack claiming that I should lose my medical license. And the citations are that I didn't actually invent mRNA vaccines, a copy of the Atlantic Monthly attack article on me, claims that I'm licensed in Virginia, which I'm not, claims that I didn't graduate from Harvard Medical School, which I did. Okay, so I have to respond to all this stuff. Now, in going through it, and it's just false, all coming, and pulled a bunch of stuff off of Twitter and LinkedIn and sent it in and saying, well, this is the reason why this guy should lose his license. Okay, because he is responsible for millions of deaths. He said it straight out. Okay, I'm responsible for millions of deaths because of what I've said on social media. Now, who is it that's filing this? It turns out it's the director of recruitment and external affairs of this hospital in Maui. This guy felt that it was necessary to send this little package of happiness right before Christmas to my licensing board to try to get my license taken away. That, what we're seeing across the United States and across the world, is it's the hospitals and the hospitalists that are attacking outside physicians.
Do you have any knowledge as to why they're doing this, other than speculation?
If I was to follow the money, I'm going to put it that way. Okay, again, I can't get into their heads.
Of course.
I don't know what's making them do this. It's crazy. Okay, never been done before.
Right.
It's happening. You know, we went and did a presentation in Alaska, and the same thing was being done for the physicians that came out and spoke about early treatment in Alaska. And fortunately, the Alaska Licensing Board put out a very terse statement that they don't want to get involved in politics and this kind of tit for tat, and that this is outside of their role. Medical licensing boards for this kind of stuff are usually involved in making determinations about somebody's suitability because of drug abuse or sexual activity or other things which are outside, or malpractice, overt malpractice. Okay, this kind of political weaponization of medical licensing boards is new. Now, here's the observation that I can make if we follow the money, is that hospitals are incentivized to treat COVID patients. The thing that ties all this little part of this story together, including the suppression through the government of early treatment, hospitals are incentivized financially to treat COVID patients. If COVID patients are being treated outside of the hospital and prevented from going to the hospital, such as the case in the Imperial Valley, where Brian Tyson, George Fareed have saved thousands and thousands of lives of indigenous Latinos that are coming across the border and working the fields. I mean, they're breaking their backs to save the poor. Amazing story there with early treatments. And I guess they're left alone because they're in the Imperial Valley and nobody cares. They're all poor. But in these urban environments, there's all these incentives for hospitals to treat COVID patients. And if people are giving treatments that are keeping the people out of hospitals, then they're not getting that revenue.
So your speculation, if I just could unpack this, that doctor in Maui who was giving early treatment, you think that the reason why he was targeted because he was directly costing the hospital money because people weren't going in?
I'm not saying, I'm saying that the observation is that early treatment keeps people out of the hospital, and that hospitals have financial incentives, including death incentives,
To discourage early treatment.